Hey, I'm Jonathan, and I live in London, England.
Hey, I'm Jeff, and I live in Perth, Australia.
Together, we are Ekko and Sidetrack.
We produce music that sounds like this.
And this.
And even this. This podcast is about music, creativity, and everything in between the giant space that separates us.
Welcome to A Band Apart with Ekko and Sidetrack.
Hello there, and welcome. If you've never listened before, you're tuned into A Band Apart with Ekko and Sidetrack. And if you have listened before, welcome back. I am Jeff, Ekko.
And I am Jonathan, Sidetrack. It's like a very formal introduction to the podcast.
It really was. I think that's the most formal thing we may have ever done, recorded-wise.
Wow.
How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
You have a slightly different living situation to what you had last time we spoke.
I do. I moved house on Saturday, technically, to my new home. I'm now living in New Cross, which is one suburb away from Broccoli. And it's a vibe. I'm living with my friend Shawnee and Jim. Yeah, I just did some shopping this morning. Bought a rug.
Oh, what kind of a rug?
Oh, no, actually, I was going to buy a rug, but I said no because the space in my room, this is an interesting start to the podcast, the space in my room only allows for my yoga mat rather than a rug.
So it's a tight situation.
Yeah, it's pretty tight, but it's cozy. But yeah, it's good. The main selling point is the shed out back, which I'm going to convert into a studio, hopefully this weekend.
That's very exciting. Yeah, I think you're quite excited when you found the place that it was going to become somewhere that was going to be your home kind of thing, because you've been a bit between places for the last 6 months.
Yeah, which is kind of fitting because to record this conversation, I've had to go back to my old house, and I'm now sitting on the floor of my old room, borrowing my friend's internet, because I don't think we're going to have internet in the house until 10th of August.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you might have to do this again next week.
Well, hopefully we're going to look into getting a Wi-Fi dongle again.
Oh, nice.
Jono's living situation. But yeah, man, it feels really good. It feels like I haven't done much nesting in my life. I've probably... The most nested I felt was probably when I lived with Leon, my friend in North Perth. But like, I've always just had the bed I made, and then the cube, and it was cool. I went to IKEA with Deacon the other day and bought some new shelving, and I'm going to buy a new bed, and I'm going to buy some coffee tables and some furniture and some plants, and like start creating a little cachet.
Multiple coffee tables.
Multiple coffee tables. We've got a living room, and I've suggested that we all have our own coffee table.
Wow, there's gonna be a lot of coffee drunk in that house.
It'll be each have a coffee table, each have just a chair that we sit on, and all the coffee tables face inwards into a circle, and that's where we put the pentagram. And then within the pentagram, we are going to put a live goat chained up.
Oh,
and then sacrifice that once a month on the full moon.
Perfect. Yeah, I think the people you're moving in with sound like well-rounded individuals.
Yeah, man. It's just, normal people hanging out, doing normal stuff. Yeah, it feels good. There's a good energy. It's weird. Like there's some weird stuff in the house though. There's like,
really?
Just like floorboards in the bathroom, which doesn't seem to.
That's pretty.
That doesn't seem
pretty English though.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to surprise the English people I tell, but I'm fucking shocked at it. There's like a weird water tank in the loft. It's a sick house. Like, it's funny. Like, I think about it how people would maybe think in Australia, like, put 25 grand, 30 grand into it and really add value to it and then resell it.
Yeah.
That's like a very Perth thought pattern. But here it's just all about maintaining, because people will rent no matter what. Like if we say went to the landlord and was like, oh, we don't like this or we don't like that, they'd be like, okay, that's fine. Someone else will rent this within a week. You know, like that's how popular renting in London is.
Yeah. For sure.
But the London property market aside, how are you going? I feel much better in this week than I did in the last couple of weeks. So how are you feeling?
Honestly,
yeah, let's get honest.
I am a little bit of a downturn, I think.
What do you think is causing that downturn?
There's a few things that I'm trying to reflect on and trying to wrangle in my life, and there's also a few things changing that I'm about to embark on that kind of scare me a little bit, which is good. One of them actually is I bought the book The Artist's Way.
Yeah.
Based on the podcast that Tim Ferriss did with Elizabeth Gilbert, and since hearing her talk about it, I was kind of like, oh, this intrigues me. I've actually heard about the books from several other places, and I'm really drawn to it. And recently, I've been trying to listen to the universe a little bit more, and when it points in a direction, when it says something, go with it. Or at least be aware of what the universe is trying to tell me. And be a little bit more conscious of that. And so I think, this book is a 12-week kind of program and stuff that encourages a lot of journaling and artist dates, and like it's really to like reawaken some creativity. And it's funny, like me and my friend are going to do it at the same time. My friend Byron, because he bought the book as well after I recommended him the podcast, and we both kind of bought it, and mine arrived like a day after his. And so we've kind of made this agreement we'll do it together. And it comes with, I was going to actually suggest, Jonathan, if you want to go and buy a copy, because you need a hard copy, you can join us. If you'd like.
I'm down. I'm for sure down.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe get yourself a copy. But yeah, like even just reading through it, there's I can already feel the resistance building, because it does require commitment. It does require time. It does, and I've been doing some of the things involved. I've been getting good at journaling, and that's been helping my brain pattern, my thoughts, and things like that, and helping my personal development. But this is like another step to take. But I'm a little bit, scared, but I think that's good. Like, leaning into the fear is a good thing. And I think just, I feel little bits and pieces bobbling around in my head, making me feel all sorts of things that kind of like are making me, not resistant to change, but just a bit like, like I've tried to put it into words a few times for myself, but there's definitely some ego hurt, and there's a little bit of soul hurt, and so I'm just kind of like letting those be, and inviting them in and sitting with them and realizing that they'll dissipate, and they're not as bad as I think they might be. The concept of, I think it's a Tara Brach idea of inviting Mara to tea, which is the Buddhism principle of when the Buddha saw the god Mara, which is the god of fear and war and stuff like that, hanging outside of his garden. Instead of being afraid of him, he invited him in and said, come and sit and have tea with me. And that's kind of the teaching, is that you invite the fears in, you identify them, and you sit with them, and you realize that maybe not as big and scary as they thought. And then having tea with them is a concept of like working through them. this year it just continues to surprise me. Like beyond a worldwide pandemic, there's just there's a lot of little things bubbling away, and sometimes I'm good at like being like, no, I'm good, and then sometimes I'm like, fuck, this hurts, and I need to deal with it, or in some cases like, I know I need to deal with it, but like I'm just not gonna at the moment. But there's definitely a lot of it's funny to have journaled for the last like 4 months every day. I can now reflect back and see some pretty common things that have come up, and also some things I'm like, whoa, you knew that then, and you wrote it, and you're like, that's a really good insight from March or something, and that's like so I'm taking that knowledge. It's like past Jeff giving some good knowledge. Yeah. I'm not sure if I've answered your question properly or if I've just kind of mumbled for 5 minutes.
No, you've revealed. You've been vulnerable. It's nice. I think it's it's difficult. I've found in my experience with journaling, because I've only been doing it for 3 weeks, maybe. July, I think the first one was July 1st. And I've missed a couple of days. But I've had the similar experience reading back through it and finding little bits of, not knowledge, or like maybe little bits of wisdom, but you do have that. You have that. When I read it, I kind of go into judgment mode on myself and go, oh, you're not listening to yourself almost.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's like your true self kind of popping through and having these moments of clarity, and then you realize that your monkey mind is running the show too much at the moment. I definitely feel like my monkey mind has his hands on the wheel in my life at the moment, and those little bits of clarity are just the true Jono kind of popping through with dropping some knowledge, trying to get the control back.
Yeah, the other book I've been reading kind of applies to that. Is another book I heard and saw mentioned about 3 or 4 times recently, and I always thought it was a bit of like a, I don't know, bit of a, what's the word? Like a bit of a self-help
bullshit.
The bullshit self-help thing, but The Alchemist, and I started reading that.
Yeah. What'd you think?
I'm nearly finished it, but I really love it. And one of the concepts I really love is the like listening to your heart, and I think that's kind of what you're saying, in that you operate a lot in your mind to get things done, and to be aware of things and fear things and stuff like that. But then occasionally your heart bubbles up and it like whispers to you, and sometimes it shouts. And I'm really liking that concept. And again, like I had a mate on the weekend tell me that he was like, you seem like the most aligned Jeff and like the best version of you that I've ever known. And I thought that was really cool and a lovely thing to hear, because I feel that, but then sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
And I try and, I feel like I'm the stillest and I've ever been. And the way I described it to someone else the other day was that when you can be as still as possible, you can notice how much other things are vibrating. And you can like read those vibrations and that energy a bit more. And yeah, sometimes I feel still But then I'll come across something that, I might have thought vibrated at a similar frequency previously, but then I'm like, whoa, that's like, that's way off now. Like, oh, and then, you check in with your mind and check in with your heart and your soul kind of thing, and you have to, whether accept is the right thing or it's like just be with it. You're like, that's okay. That's this or something. And I think, that's what I'm learning, to be okay. And being okay is not like accepting everything as it is, but it's a bit more like going with the flow and being able to just be, maybe. I don't know. Fuck, I sound like a some sort of hippie woo-woo teacher tonight. But yeah, I'm just thinking out loud.
That's good. I like it. Well, like, your heart is a muscle, and you, just like any of your other muscles, you start working out and it's going well, and then you eventually have a bad day, or you have a day where you don't really want to go to the gym, or you have this little hiccup. And I think the same happens when you're really focusing on embracing your feelings and trying to listen to your heart and trying to work on yourself. You have moments where you feel like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm super aligned, Jeff. And then you have other days, you're going to have bad days, essentially. I know Aubrey Marcus, who's like a good teacher, good podcaster, great. He's got a great podcast if you haven't heard him before. He talks about having days where he's like, fuck this kind of thing. And he works on himself incredibly hard. It's that's part of the journey. Like, it's not all, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's not all, life isn't easy. And I think some of the, and not that you thought it was easy, but I think when things are going well and when you're really putting in the work, and then a hiccup happens, there is this feeling that you can be like, but I'm doing everything, like, but I'm doing everything right. Like, I'm working on all these things, yet I still have, like, you almost think that just because you're doing all these things correctly, you don't deserve to have a hiccup. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, by the very nature of how good things go, when things are going well, when something does go slightly less well, it will feel like a bad thing was due to happen, and you'll be like, oh, this was always going to happen. This is a bad thing. But I'm starting to view things in a bit more of a holistic sense, as in, like, everything's a lesson, everything's an opportunity to apply the knowledge you've learnt. And if you say you know but then you don't do, then you don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can deny some of your own, like, learning. Or you can be like, no, it doesn't matter, this is a different case. Or you can be a bit like, I'm just not going to apply that knowledge this time. But then you may be talking yourself out of other opportunities.
100%. But I think that's a very human fault.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this year has made me better at dealing with uncertainty. And also realizing that no matter how tightly you grip the wheel, it's not attached to anything. You're not steering a ship. You're not steering anything. There's, like, bigger forces at play. And that's not to sound like fucking all fatalist and nihilistic. I'm saying, like, there is a limit to the amount of control you have.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a limit to the amount of control you have, but you have much more than you think.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about it before, creating your own reality with your mind. Like you can choose as soon as you open the door, you can choose what universe you want to be living in. And man,
Yeah.
I remember Mum saying that to us as kids. Do you remember? Like she was like, you can, put a smile on your face and you can have a good day. You can choose to have a good day. And I used to think, fuck off. Like, fuck off. That makes no sense. I'm in a bad mood. That's my mood for the day kind of thing. But it's so true that you have a decision at all times in your life to make a change or do something differently or think about something differently or all those beautiful things.
Yeah. I've been playing the trick sometimes, particularly if I'm in my car. I'll like smile or start smiling, trick your brain into thinking that, and it does work. And like I've also been like kind of giggling at myself and like potential misfortunes that might happen, rather than potentially how I might have been frustrated previously.
Giggling and laughing at yourself is a good way to cut through the energy brick of frustration or anger, or if you're constipated energy wise.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's like if you're in an argument or in a funk, sometimes just laughing can get you out of that. Just slice through it like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah, I think another thing that like might be contributing to some of my tightness maybe is like thinking a little bit about music stuff. And you've been a bit unstable recently, you've had to work a fair bit, I've actually had to work a fair bit as well, and there's like we've got lots of ideas sitting there, but like I haven't quite found the thread that's going to be the next thing. Like, and so I'm hoping over the next 2 or 3 days that I find that, and I can report back next week. And you told me you'd started something the other day as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like because I get this a little bit of a stress almost, that I'm like, I don't have a thing, and that feeds into the imposter syndrome. Like,
the
last tune we made was just a fluke. People say they're like paper birds, but what's the next thing? Like, nothing is good.
Can you apply all this self-love practice and all this practice, can you apply that to the voice that says those things when it comes to music? I know you can do it. You seem to have been able to do it with other things. Do you find it harder to when it comes to music or your own creative, what you deem as being faults?
I know it's related to doing the work, and that's how it always works.
Yeah.
And honestly, last week was a bit of a clusterfuck because both days I had to sort other shit out rather than do music.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I had some time stolen away from me.
Yeah.
But I know over the next 2 or 3 days, I've got some good, solid music times. And I'm hoping that I will, through the act of sitting down and doing the work, I will find something that pushes me into that groove, because that's how it's always worked in the past. Like, there's no magic to overcoming that. I know how I'm gonna find the groove, and the groove is by doing the work. And we both get a bit agitated and struggle if we haven't done anything creative for a bit.
100%.
So I think that's the main cause of it. But it's like there is I got a bit antsy. I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was early this morning. I was just like, I want to get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't want to be here. I wanted a change
in the studio.
I wanted
or
Nah, well, I'm actually making some changes in the studio. I'm gonna hang a cloud. I'm gonna declutter the shit. I've done some of that on the weekend. Um, but yeah, I really just wanted to jump on a plane and leave.
Why don't you go down south?
Well, funny you should say that. I've actually been invited by 2 separate parties to go down south over the weekend, and I'm going to take one of them up on it. And
Sick.
It's through different circumstances I was allowed to. My boss at the coffee job I have was also, suggesting that we take a break. So there's that option.
Wow,
which is kind of cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm not. One of the options is like going camping, and the other option is like kind of go stay in a house. And I'm leaning towards the stay in the house vibe because that's kind of what I feel like doing. And it's like with different people and stuff like that. But I feel like I want to get away, and then I have these opportunities, and I could say no to both of them, and I could choose to stay here. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go because I feel like there's that opportunity there, and it's calling me so somewhat. And I think I'm in a good place to listen. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a crack.
Listen to the universe. It's led you positively in the past, so keep doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on a little trip tomorrow. I'm going to go see young Josh Graphics in Bristol, and meet Ruth.
You're going to meet Ruth. You're going to close the loop.
Yeah,
nice one.
Close the Ruth loop. And I'm going to go on Graphics' stream tomorrow night.
Sick.
And maybe spend some time in the studio with him, depending when I arrive tomorrow.
Yep.
Should be a vibe. I think Ruth's going to perform Paper Birds live.
That'd be cool. Please get lots of video of that.
Yeah. So, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, hi. I'd like a plate of big tunes and a serving of piping hot bangers on the side.
What's the demo for this week, Jeff?
The demo for this week, we thought it might be fun to show you an older version of a song that actually was released. So this is an earlier working version of our tune with Trey that came out in late 2017, I think. The tune is called Luddites. And this is a version, I don't know. You'll hear some common elements in the final one that was released, but I think we ended up changing the bass line and a few other bits and pieces. But, it might be an interesting one to listen to if you know that the tune that came out, and then be able to contrast. You kind of see what stayed in, what gets cut out, and how we changed. I think we can probably talk about it after, but I think from memory, because again, I've just found this demo and then haven't listened. I've just been like, yeah, there's audio there, and I'm sending it to Jono right now. I think from memory we just like changed up the groove, but yeah, there might be some cool bass sounds that we can go back to. Either way, let's get into it, shall we?
Perfect. vibe. I really like those do bass lines. Let's use that for another song. Or is that a sample?
I think it's a chopped sample because that's actually been in a few things. Remember that rip-off break tune that we made?
Yep.
It's it was used in that.
Okay.
That would be a funny demo to get up. Basically just made a song and like we wrote it and then we're like, this is just like a break tune.
Us trying to be break.
Trying to be break. It was a fun experiment.
It was a fun experiment.
Also, the intro is way like just flatter. Like I just think it kind of like tells less of a story. This version, definitely honed the version and honed the energy in the final as well. I think
100%.
This is a bit.
You can tell, like this. I think this is like the version that we worked. That's like what the bounce was when Trev was in Perth and we started the tune, wasn't it?
Yeah, essentially, I think because we were together and we worked on it together over a few days while he was in Perth.
Yeah.
Then we bounced parts and he worked it some more, then he sent it back and then we worked it some more and pushed it more into that kind of mind vortex-y zone.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where it ended up. I might play it on in a few weeks.
Where might you play it?
I might play it at the Court, Jonathan, on August 15th. That show looks like it could be the first big drum and bass show out of lockdown status. I mean, clubs are kind of open now, but they're running at a smaller capacity and stuff like that. But as far as a big venue like the Court, that would be the first of its kind, which is really cool. And so like, here's hoping that that can be a reality. It'd be really exciting.
Fuck yeah. It's going to be a great gig.
It sure is. Are you a little bit hurt that you're not going to be there?
Yeah, I am a little bit hurt that I'm not going to be there. But as we've spoken about before, there's positives and negatives to me being here and you being there. And sometimes there's going to be elements of frustration on both our ends because the other one is enjoying something that the other one can't. And this is one of those things. I can't be there. That's fine. And I know you're going to smash it. I know it's going to be fun. And I'll be there in spirit. Maybe I'll meditate and chant for 5 days straight before the show so I can beam my consciousness in through some sort of LED light wall that McAuliffe can set up.
That sounds good. I will say one thing, Jonathan, right at the end of this podcast. We haven't laughed during this podcast.
We haven't, Jeff. And that's something we're usually known for. It's been a bit more of a somber podcast, but that's fine. Sometimes they're going to be talking about silly stuff and sometimes they're going to be serious.
Thanks for allowing me to have that conversation. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about during these things, and it's nice just to pontificate in the wild.
Let it flow. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on your podcast app and keep up to date with all new episodes. They're going to be coming out once a week. We are Ekko and Sidetrack on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, we are Ekko Sidetrack. Go listen to our music on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, or wherever your ears consume happiness. Lots of love, people.